Yo, what's up? What's up? It's the Hungry Millennial back again with yet another proactive pragmatism. In this proactive pragmatism, we carry on with our series Millennials Are. This next millennial is resilient, poised, and determined. Ladies and gentlemen, Robbi Jenkins. Yo, Robbi, what's up?
How's it going?
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man.
You seem a little shocked. It's funny. It's that intro gets people all the time because they're like, it's just me. I'm like, I like to make all my people feel, like rock stars, because that's what you really are. Like, watching your journey so far has been magical. Like, it's kept me on my thing, because I remember when we were in ROTC and we go to the track, we run and run and run. And then, it is like, Robbie's beating me and I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Because you were one of the fastest cadets, not just one of the fastest females. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is a legendary plaque out there, at the end of the road. If I ever retire, like, this goes out to Robbi Jenkins because you motivated me so much. So I know I talk a lot. How have you been?
I've been doing good. It's been crazy. I feel like since 2014 was probably the last time we saw each other. So like about 7 years.
Right? Like, it's weird what social media does, though.
Right? I know.
It's like you're never really disconnected, but like you haven't seen each other. Like 2014, that's
7 years.
Is that 7 years? Wow. Like it's weird. I don't like it. It means we're getting old.
But they say that 30 is like the new 20, and I'm really starting to believe that. I don't know if that's because I'm turning 30 this year, so I'm like desperately trying to like be okay with it. But
no,
30 is
that's
the new
awesome.
20.
No, but that's hilarious because, and honestly, like we have, I think, I don't know if you got your resiliency like with fitness from the military or like if that coincided, but like being in the military, I look at physical fitness totally different, because we've had to. And so for a long time, it's like, that's you. But I fell off the horse because, I'm part-time. I'm a guard guy. Like, like there was certain stuff I could slide. Like I was mid-20s, and it sounds weird because we're about, mid-20s. And I was Uber driving. And, like at some point you're like, I could always take a PT test. I could always knock it out. I'm good. I can, whatever. And then I get up. I was probably, this was when I was living out of my car in Chicago. And I get up and I'm like, I'm going for a run today. So you put on your little PTs because you want to be cool. And like, so I'm in the gray PTs, and I couldn't run. Like my knee was like killing me. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, you're a fatty. Like you need to start now, like lose the weight. And so can you give, so you're a lot more than fitness. Can you give the listeners a short bio that encompasses Robbi Jenkins?
All right. Down and dirty. So did the ROTC program at EIU, Eastern Illinois University. Obviously with you, graduated in 2014. Started meddling a little bit with bodybuilding, bikini division. While I was in college, then I went to flight school. I became an Apache pilot. I did about 6.5 years in the Army. And about 2 years ago, I finally got to a point where Roland and I talked about it. It's my husband now. And we decided to, like it was time for me to compete again. And he was on board because really I couldn't do it without his support. So then, I was flying still and then competing in bodybuilding. And now I'm transitioning out of the military and still competing in bodybuilding, hoping to get my pro card. And now I am doing the big jump into my own online and local personal training, nutrition coaching. So
Outstanding. So, you know, it's funny because when you talk about aviation, see, what our listeners don't know is that we were both horrible swimmers, extremely afraid of swimming. So me and Robbi Jenkins would be in the pool getting ridiculed by Master Sergeant Gately.
Oh my gosh.
And Sergeant Ho.
Like the rifle, like having to like swim with like the rifle above water. It's like I can't even swim with two hands, let alone take away one of them.
Like super facts. Like I was in there horrified. But you know what? And it's funny because out of everybody, like I had a connection with you because I'm like, we got these seem like major barriers. Like you want to be an aviation officer. Like that was a requirement that you master something that you've never had to master in your entire life. And I was, as an enlisted member, I was a member of a bridging unit, and they'd always do CWST. And I'd be out there like, nah, I'm good, you know.
So I will say, and I was so happy about it, but I only ever had to do like a CWST at flight school, which by the way was not anywhere near as hellish as what Master Sergeant Gately or Captain Alex put us through.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember Captain Alex, he used to, because I had so much like anxiety and fear in the water, and I had that because I almost drowned when I was little. I was at church camp, I was bold and stubborn, and I didn't want to wear a life jacket because I thought they looked goofy. So no one ever taught me how to swim, but I figured it out. It was enough to pass the swim test. But I was like on this thing called the blob, and I jumped off, and as I was coming up, this big old chubby kid, mind you, I'm like the tiniest kid there. As I'm coming up, his butt hits my head, knocks me back under. Yeah, and so like, what do? I like gasp for air, and I mean, that was it. I was probably 12. So when I was in college and like they were forcing me in the water, that was terrifying. I hated it.
Wow. Like that's even bigger than like my story. Like my mom saw somebody die. Like so she always kept us away from the water. And then my little sister, like I don't know if it's Bernadette or one of them, but she like literally she walked into the water by herself because kids are just like they want to explore, man. So she walks into the water by herself and almost drowned. And so, you know, you see these things and like you want to run in the opposite direction. But that's kind of awesome that like it wasn't that bad, but they prepared us for a lot of different variables. Like it was pretty awesome because even when I went to like LDAC and got the Recondo Award and stuff like that, like it was just like that. Bro, you got to drop, like, you know, you hanging on the bar. Hey, let me explain to the listeners real quick. CWST is Combat Water Survival Test. It's a requirement for all cadets who are in ROTC programs who are planning on becoming Army officers. By the way, just for the listeners, you don't have to go to West Point or a military academy to become an Army captain, lieutenant, major, colonel, general, all of those things. It honestly, I think it builds more character. Maybe I'm biased if you go to a public university, because at West Point, it's like, I mean, they're all tight knit. They're like, this is what you're here for, right? But at a lot of other schools, they're like, oh, figure it out. If you show up to class, you're responsible enough to be here, at least, right? But yeah, LDAC was tough because for the listeners, so we would have to. So I don't remember how it went. Did we have to we had to shimmy on a rope to the middle of a lake with nothing around it. And then we had to brace ourselves and slide over, then drop, and then swim to the side of the ledge. Like that it messed me up. And another captain, shout out to you, Cap. You know what I'm saying? I got all my captains on here. It's like another captain, he was there with me at camp, and he's one of my best friends now. But and the last time I actually saw him was at LDAC. So it's kind of funny what social media can do. So he was like, hey, bro, get up there. Stop. You know, there were some words I'm not going to say on the podcast, but he's like, get up there, do it. I was like, okay. So I dropped and I'm in there like, okay, is this how they taught me how to do it? You know? And so that was pretty awesome. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Like Robbi was actually like one of the top cadets in our class. If not, I'd say the top. I mean, you know, politics play, you know, like a lot of, you know, they play a lot of leadway there, but like you'd run faster than anybody. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast. My question is, I did have a question about aviation. So you said, so you mentioned earlier before we got on the pod that you were actually, let's start. So how did you even think about joining the military?
So honestly, 100% upfront. I grew up in a very kind of strict home, or at least like strict to me. My dad was a preacher. And by the time I was 18, I was just like, I want to get out of here. I was in this little town. It was 2,900 people. Just, I don't know. It's just like, I always knew that I didn't want to stay there. And that's not where I wanted to be for the rest of my life. And my parents are basically like, well, if you want to go anywhere else, like, you got to figure it out. Well, I also, like, my sisters didn't go to like a 4-year college or anything like that. They both went to like a local community college. And my mom was like pretty much set that that's what I was going to end up doing. And I was just like, no freaking way. And she was like, well, fine, figure it out. And sure enough, I'd gotten in trouble and had more reason to just be ready to be out on my own. So started Googling around, and actually I found out about ROTC because of Levi. So then we got on there and yeah, applied for a 4-year scholarship and got it. And after that, it was just playing it by ear because I had no, like, it wasn't like I was a little tiny tot with my little military trooper toys or anything like that. I was just winging it.
Wow. That's powerful because a lot of people don't understand that route. You got a full ride scholarship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that's very interesting because as we, you know, we're in the social, you know, political climate of where they're talking about student loans and things like that. Like, I didn't even know that was an option. But even for cadets like myself who had to like take out loans, like we still had some tuition assistance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I owe a half, maybe even some, because you got a lot of kids because ROTC kept us on track.
Yep.
Because you had a lot of kids that went 6 years to Eastern, 7 years to Eastern. So it kind of, by searching for the scholarship and the tuition assistance, hint, hint, viewers, we catch this 5-10 years later, go search out a scholarship and figure out if it's for you. And ROTC might not be for you, but like, you know, my fellow captain here, she is done with her contract. She did what, like six years, right? It's been like 6, 7-ish, 8.
6.5.
So. Okay. So, I mean, and you could be potentially debt free. You know, you play your cards right. And so that is super awesome. So a lot of people, they won't know this, but I was at one of your earliest bodybuilding competitions. How many bodybuilding competitions had you done thus far when I went to the first one so many years ago?
Oh my gosh. I like, you're bringing up all of this stuff and it's re-sparking memories. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. Because we were in like the most just like cheap podunk hotel, just trying to make it work in Chicago too. Oh no. Yeah, total broke college kid life. It was like I wasn't going into debt, but I wasn't making money either. I think that was probably my 4th NPC show. So that was the 2nd time I ever did the fitness division. And I think that's what you came and saw me do.
Okay.
So
how does that work? So when you say NPC, what exactly is that?
So NPC is a amateur league of bodybuilding. It's the National Physique Committee. And it's one of the, if probably the most well-known amateur bodybuilding league. A lot of people that you see that go on to the Olympia stage, they started out in the NPC. And then they won their pro status at a national show and then went into the like International Federation of Bodybuilding, so IFBB. And then those pros are the ones that start working to get on the Olympia stage. So
okay. So in where you are now, so you went from so you said beach body, right?
So bikini. So I started in bikini.
Oh, bikini, my bad.
Yeah, it was very, very modelly and kind of flashy. And you know me, it wasn't like, it was fun to do, but it's not personality.
Robbi, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
I was there. I was glad to support, but like after that, I have so much respect for bodybuilding, for like working out, just all of it, because a lot of people don't know that, but you had to like turn my color just to go out there and shot on the stage. Like I'm literally, like for the listeners, like I'm literally laying on the floor trying to get some sleep because we're ghetto and we're just dumb college students. And I was like, I just need to get away from campus. You're like, come support, man. Come hang out. Come support. Like, all right, cool. Forget it, you know. And so I'm laying on the floor, like just trying to sleep, and she's just putting layer after layer after layer after layer of suntan lotion on you, and I'm just like, and then that wasn't even the worst part. So we get there, right? And like it's just everybody's doing it. Like it was so ghetto in the backstage. I mean, I respect it because like so many people don't understand the process behind a lot of these things. Like where your lats are today is like straight up beast mode. Like I can tell that you just put in so much work. Like because at that show, I mean, you were thin, slender. Obviously, it was the bikini division. And what division are you in now?
So now I'm in figure.
Figure, okay.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, like it's the sport itself, even in the last 7 years, has changed. And then honestly, like me as a competitor, yeah, I competed in college, but like, did I take it as seriously? Like knowing what I know now, like, was I really taking it that seriously? I'm like, no. So like where I was at then competing to versus like where I was at, like where I am at now, completely different.
Wow.
So
okay, so I've seen an evolution here, right? Because you went from and this is a part of if I could coin the term, a search for a higher level of mental health as well.
Yeah.
Like looking at your Instagram, it's very inspiring to see the other side of fitness, of like, hey, don't abuse yourself. Take care of your body, but get some rest, because so many people they might look at us and watch this podcast like they're like, yeah, he's got muscle, he's doing this, he's doing that. Well, there was a point in time where I disliked my body, so I started losing the weight and I started just eating less, and but now I'm at a point where like I'm all about self-love and self-care. So like I will eat the veggies and the chicken for lunch. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you were telling me how you're meal prepping and everything. Like that's what I do. But like at night, like I'm about to dog a pizza. You know what I mean? Because I'm like calories. I worked all day at FedEx, been doing the whole look tight, got the shirt going. I'm gonna have me one of those bad boys. So so what has that been like for you? Because I know that like for me now, like I love, like I got water right here. You know what I mean? Like I make it a challenge now. So what was that transition like back then, and then the middle, and then where you are now?
Oh man. So I honestly, like, I think a lot of what changed really was definitely more of like a mental level and maturity, realistically.
Okay.
Back then when I was in college, like I didn't know who I was yet. I didn't know exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I thought competing was cool, but then I wasn't weighing the pros and cons of like, oh, I'm 6 weeks out from a show. Like I shouldn't be drinking any alcohol. Like I didn't take it seriously then.
Which real quick, it's look, I thought, I couldn't tell you drank anything back then. Maybe it was just our genetics of being younger, younger kids and Rotzi. But I'm like, I literally I had no clue. I had no clue. I'm like, she drink water, eat veggies. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would go through periods of drinking. It wasn't like I never became one of those people where I drink every single day all the time. But man, like if I was ready to go out, like I was going out and it was big time. Like it was all out on the table.
Sounds like Eastern Chuck Vegas.
Yeah, and I mean, like really, I didn't really do that much then, because when I was in college, like I was married to my first husband, and he was 100% against alcohol. So unless we were like in a breakup, like before we got married, like once we got married, like I didn't touch it. So really, like a lot of the drinking and stuff didn't come until pretty much after we separated. Okay. But yeah, I think just going through, like I never lost my love for fitness ever. You know, and I never took it seriously as like, I never took it to the point where I knew I wanted to get back on stage, but now it's like I know I want to be a pro competitor, and I know I want to I want to get a shot at the Olympia stage. So like my mentality toward it has changed, and then I think just over whether it was going through like, you know, some like mental struggles, whether it was going through divorce and going from that, whether it was trauma, be it a relationship or family. I grew up a lot, and I really kind of just learned what actually mattered. So it makes my focus just a whole different level now compared to where I was at in college. So it's like now, like I know who I am, I know what I want, I know the things I want to do, and I know the things that I need to do to get there. And I know that if what I'm doing doesn't fall in line with that, it's just me spending energy that I could be using to get better. And so that is kind of like the outlook. Like that's kind of how I've grown over the last couple of years.
Okay. Wow, that's powerful because, you know, people, they don't have a lot of respect for their energy and for their time. And I don't know, and I can only speak for myself in this, but the military has forced me to honor the energy that I have, because I know I can't be everywhere at once. And as a leader, you will drive yourself ragged.
Yep.
You know, like being a platoon leader was rough. And you think, okay, you know, I was on the verge of making captain when I got selected for the deployment, and you think, okay, I made captain, it's going to be easier. But then there's more responsibility because they don't know if you're a 10-year captain or if you're a 1 month captain, right?
Yeah.
But here's the catch. By being able to manage that energy effectively, you can make yourself within months look like a 10-year captain, because there are so many people that have been sitting there just twiddling their thumbs. And shout out to everybody else. Like their journey is their journey. Like this is not a, you know, a place of judgment for me and like to judge others. But at the same time, I'm like, dog, you're leading these troops. Like I remember when I was a LT, when I was even when I was enlisted, I looked at captains like they were gods. And
it's so funny to think about too, because then when you put the bars on, you're like, it's like this reality comes. It's like everybody in their own rank. Nobody has a freaking clue. Like we're all trying to figure it out.
Just trying to figure it out every day. Even generals being told by the higher general, like the 1-star being told by the 2-star, hey, go do this. Like, yes, boss. Right on it.
Yeah, and then they're up there with like with that decision, and you know what they're thinking. Like it's different, a different kind of decision, but in their head they're just like, I hope that was what I was supposed to do. Like, hope this works.
You know, well, and that's a testament to life in general, right?
Yeah.
Like we're every day, like you and I are wired. Like if we see something, we gotta fix it and figure it out and figure it out. And it's awesome seeing your journey, because you transitioned in a way like a lot of women nor people will go the same route and do the same things that you've done. And so in order to have that type of discipline at our age, that's extremely powerful, because it's easy. Like look at bodybuilding like 10, 20 years ago compared to today. Like back then you could you could hide a lot of things, and then try to bring things to the fold later. But here the burger is in front of your face. Like when we get off this podcast, like I'm probably gonna get on Facebook and they're gonna throw a burger like right there. And then you got the yes, girl, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, bro, hey, come drink, come turn up with us. And I'm like, none of those things really amount to what I'm going to get out of my goals. And that's tough. Like, how do you stick to your goals? Like, because I know there's a lot of peer pressure still, because I mean, you are active duty, you know what I'm saying, in the military. So like the peers don't stop. Like it's funny, like after drills, like I've had my hiccups with alcohol and things like that. And I don't like how I feel on it, and I've made a bunch of mistakes. Like we're fallible, but alcohol makes everything 10 times worse because everybody's perceptions is all over the place. So how have you been able to kind of stay the course when it came to, your sobriety and battle with substances?
So honestly, I mean, I had a struggle, and I had a really good struggle for a while. So especially when I got to brag. So I mean, there was some drama and stuff that I had to deal with at flight school. People trying to like throw my name into the mud and whatnot. Had like a close friend do stuff like that. I had someone that I dated for a little bit find out some stuff, and he held that over my head for a while. And at that point, like I'm a scared young person, and I don't want to fess up to mistakes I've done and face like whatever consequences that could be. So yeah, I mean, I hid a lot behind drinking and a lot of the stress of that behind drinking. And then even when I got to brag, the first year and a half or so that I was here, I had a couple buddies, and I think we had all been through some pretty significant stuff. I had one of my buddies, he had walked in at flight school to an apartment and found his best friend had shot himself in the head and committed suicide. So, he had been drinking over that. I've been drinking over my trauma. I had a buddy that was deployed, wasn't able to protect the ground forces, ideally, and he had a lot of guilt and felt like it was his fault for that. So you'd have the three of us getting together every weekend, and we'd be getting together and having fun, but realistically, like all three of us were drinking through our traumas, and that's how we were coping. And I guess I got blessed because I continued, as I started trying to like face my trauma head on, it was like one thing after another just kept getting revealed, and it just beat me up so bad to the ground. I actually, in 2019, my husband walked out on me attempting suicide. I attempted to overdose. Vaguely remember it. I was blacked out drunk pretty much when that happened. I begged him the next morning, he was wanting to take me to the hospital. I begged him not to do it because I knew if he did, I would 100% lose my flight status. So like went into counseling again, started trying to attack things, and it was a real mental struggle through 2019 and 2020. The one thing that I did is I promised my husband if I got to that low of a point again, like I would check myself in. And eventually I found myself there. It was almost exactly a year later. I was driving to work, and I mean, I just broke. And at that point, like, it seemed crappy at the time, but like that was when the good stuff started happening, because then I didn't have a choice. So I checked myself into psych ward at Womack. I went to behavioral health first, and then they ultimately decided that like, yeah, we need to check you in. And of course, I'm thinking I'm going to be there for like, maybe be like a couple days. They kept me there for like a week and a half. So by the time I got out of there, like, if you're not crazy going into that place, like, you are going to definitely feel crazy going out. And then not to mention like the antidepressants I'd been on, they weren't working. So that 9 days I was in there, it was like a real quick, rapid trial, just drug run of antidepressants, sleep meds, all this other stuff, because I hadn't been sleeping. My stress was through the roof, and I couldn't handle any of it anymore. And so they just start throwing stuff at me and upping it, because if I do go crazy, I'm already in the little crazy bin. So they're like, no harm, no foul. If we're gonna be aggressive, this is the place to be aggressive with it. So I mean, when I even checked out, like I was still in a rough spot. And then I ended up going, we had a war fighter. They sent me straight out to that in the field. Did not handle that well at all. Like usually I could keep my composure pretty decent. I think it was about 2 days from the event being over, and I just blew up in the talk, which was not okay. And then I think that was when, especially because there were some field grades around that had worked with me and seen me when I was in my prime, as far as like, you know, real heavy hitter. And so like they knew, because they'd worked with me, like they've seen what I could do. Like they knew, hey, like something is really up with her. So they started vouching for me. And I think at that point, that was pretty much when I got told, you know, pack your stuff up, you're leaving the field early. I went in to check in with a Sud C advisor, because I decided to like self-enroll into the Army substance abuse program while I was in the psych ward, thinking, you know, like maybe this is just like a group thing. It's kind of getting out of hand, but, you know, nothing crazy, just trying to keep it from getting worse. And I literally get out of the field, haven't even gotten home to take a shower. And this woman's like, girl, like, we need to send you to rehab. I was just like, you're kidding me. Like, I haven't been home in almost 3.5 weeks. Like, I've been in a hospital. I've been in like a field in the middle of nowhere. And like, so now I'm going to go get sent somewhere else for 28 days. And we had COVID, so we couldn't have visitors and stuff either. But yeah, like what helped me stay the course is that was the point where the decision was actually made. They're like, you know, like, we're just going to go ahead and med border. And that's what they did. I got out of rehab. I got sent into the recovery unit at Fort Bragg. And pretty much since then, it's been going through the med board process, pretty much since January. And after that, I've just kind of surrounded myself with people that I met at rehab that were also at Bragg or other surrounding bases in South Carolina or North Carolina. And we all keep in touch and support each other. And really, it's just my circle kind of changed, and the places that and situations I put myself in started to change.
Okay. So
That was a lot.
no, it was, but it was powerful, and it takes a lot of strength to share that story, because you know, well, just as well as I do with the military, how people talk and people do things, and people
Yep.
don't want to face what's real.
Yep.
And there were quite a few times in my career where I had to face the music, you know, and you know, in the military, we can, you know, we can blame we can be like, oh yeah, they're picking on me because I'm a female, or because I'm black, or because, you know, whatever. But the truth is if we don't break, if something in us doesn't break and say, hey, there's something that I can do about this.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that I need to change. And you know what? I'll take all those excuses, everything else. I'll put those aside. And then I'm going to focus on that thing. That's where all the breakthroughs happen. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. I mean, that happened during my deployment as well. Like, I just, you know, you go in and you're focused on, yeah, you know, I want to become a captain because you're focused on finances, right? Like, I was in debt. Like, I was just drowning. Like, I know you remember the Cadillac back in the day, like that bad boy, you know, I traded up for something new. And then right before the deployment, I found Dave Ramsey, and it changed my life. And like, I'm to this day, I'm debt free except student loans, but they're next because I'm getting deployed again, and they're gonna be wiped out. So, and I've just been intentional and deliberate about every dollar. But it's just extremely powerful that, like, when you decide that you're going to take action, a lot of those things, and it sounds like for you, a lot of those things just kind of fell in line. Mm-hmm. And it's like you either cave or you conquer. Yeah. And That's super powerful. That's why I was like, at first, I was checking out the shirts. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, man, I don't know if this one for me. And I started looking at it. I'm like, okay, I like that design. I'm gonna cop one of these. And then like I started to sell myself on it because that's pretty much what the Hungry Millennial is about. Searching for more. It's not like, I don't do the fads and the stuff for the clout. Like I'm really like, can I add value to the lives of others? And when I start looking at other people and how they can learn from something or they can pick out something, because that's how I learn. Like I literally all day when I'm doing FedEx, like I'm delivering a package, I'm just listening to podcasts and audiobooks and just trying to grow. And like they'll recommend something else, so I go to something else. It was pretty cool. You were talking about take action today, and I was like, she actually listened to the podcast. But you just never know who you're going to run into and you're going to affect. And that is really cool because Mike was there. You know what I mean? Like down in the dumps about, but it seems like, and here's the thing is, I don't know how much was rooted in your past with, religion, but like my father was a minister back in the day. And so it's just very interesting how our past like really coincide. Like I was a preacher's kid that always wanted to walk away from it, but I found myself, there are pictures of me when I was a little tyke, wearing a suit, and I was standing in the pulpit, and, my dad's like, yeah, and, people in the church are like, yeah, you have the gift of gab, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I don't want to be in the church, and here I am just doing it in a different way, talking about hope, talking about grace, talking about, because too many people get tied into the religious aspect, and there are certain tenets that I can't really rock with.
Yep.
But the tenets of grace and being there for the people. And here's the other thing is like, certain characters that they talk about, like Christ and stuff like that. Like he turned water into wine. So like if it doesn't tell us, like a lot of times, like people got it jacked up out here. Like they got, oh yeah, you did do this. And, I was sitting in a service the other day because I was like, I'm going to give church a shot again. And it was like, but the message was, go to the people, be with the people, talk to the people. And I think that's super powerful. Like whether you're religious or not, or whatever, whatever somebody is out there, being with the people and listening and understanding their stories and where they're coming from, and seeking first, to judge yourself before you judge somebody else. That's one of the most powerful things, because like every day I see people that are down in the dumps, see people that have suffered with sobriety, drugs, alcohol, mismanaging money. And like, that could have been one of us.
Yep.
Like, well, I don't know how many captains are on the streets of Decatur. You know what I mean? Like, so that's pretty awesome.
How many people are out there now that are like actually still suffering from that stuff? It's just their closet. They don't talk about it, or
Well,
that was what I learned. Is I learned, like I always thought an alcoholic was, somebody that's homeless on the street with their little bottle in their brown bag, like begging for change. And kind of like what I learned through treatment, because like when I first got there, I was like, I shouldn't be here. Like I'm not an alcoholic. Like I just, I had some real like mental, emotional stuff going on, and then I was drinking because of it. Like that's the issue. But once you really start learning about like recovery and alcoholism, and you peel back the layers, like that is what is at like the bottom of the layers, just resentments from different traumas and experiences that you've had in your life that you just held on to. And then I realized, I'm like, I'm looking at this the wrong way. Like, no, I haven't gotten a DUI yet and all this other stuff. But if I keep acting the way I do, I mean, I went out and driven drunk. Like I'd done it before. I just hadn't gotten caught. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was like, I could lose my family, and I could have had all of these things happen. And if I don't stop doing what I'm doing now, it's not that I'm an alcoholic, or I'm not an alcoholic because I haven't lost it, or I'm an alcoholic that just hasn't lost it yet. So that was kind of the approach that I had took to it. And finally I was like, yeah, like, I've got people in my family that have dealt with an addiction. I have a cousin that OD'd And then addiction just runs rampant in my family with like my half brothers. And I see where they're at now, and I'm like, that definitely can be me. That 100% could be me if I keep going down the way that I'm going. I don't want to be there.
Well,
So,
in front page, because you're tied to the military, the captain, and Army Tom spins things all the time into things that they're really not, when it's really just a person deserving of some type of grace,
yeah.
and that's hard. So you're extremely transparent about these things, and you've been very unafraid to speak your truth. What brought that out of you? And at what point did you decide that, like, hey, I'm going to start talking about this? I'm just going to go off the cuff and talk about it.
So I think, again, it all just kind of came back from experience. So I got burned really bad. So talk about full transparency. Like I'll talk about like what happened to me with flight school. So I got under a 15-6 investigation 2 times while I was in flight school. Yeah, you're like, I didn't even know that. The first time, and like I won't name any names or anything like that, but like the first time there was a girl, and this girl, I shit you not, she was like my best friend there. And so she was going through some issues like with her marriage, and like obviously like at that point, like I had just gotten divorced. I think it was like May timeframe. And she was on the verge of making some decisions that I had already made. And I told her, like, one, be careful. I told her, one, like, don't let other people dictate what you do or your decisions. Like, when you're ready to make them, like, you will make the decision that is right for you. So, like, don't let somebody push you into something you're not ready for. Like, that being said, the decisions that you make outside while you're trying to make a bigger decision, it can make that incredibly worse. So, I mean, for me, although I was legally separated, like, I did get involved with somebody, and I shared that experience with her. And, like, I told her kind of like some of the stuff that happened, like good, bad. And I was like, but it's just not worth it. Like, now, like in your career, like, it's not worth it. So you fast forward a couple months, and I'd kind of warned her too. I was like, like the person that you're learning how to fly with and stuff, like, you guys need to be kind of careful. Like, people are starting to talk. And yeah, I mean, being super open with her, trying to help, I get pulled out of flight school, and she basically reported what I told her. And then on top of that, she made up a laundry list of other stuff. So I got pulled out of flight training for 6 months, and I never knew why. Like, we never got into a fight. I tried to, be an adult about it. I tried to go talk to her just to figure out like what was going on. Her mom was in town, answered the door, like wouldn't let me go talk to her. And to this day, like, I still don't know what happened. I never got closure on that, and I probably never will. But like, that hurt. But then at the same time, like, there's this fear, because I made it through that. And I was like, there's this fear that, like, if I get put in this situation again, like that's it. I'm done. Well, me being me, like, instead of focusing on flight school, I got involved into another relationship that, I thought this person understood everything about me. He told me like all of his stuff. Like, Robbi, like, did you not just learn anything? And, I started confiding in him. Well, it got to a point where things were starting to get a little bit more emotionally abusive. Things were definitely sexually abusive. I ended up, like, before we broke up, was raped 2 times. But I stayed, and the reason that I stayed is because he knew and had proof of what I said on paper that lined up with what she reported. So I'm like, if he goes through and like does this investigation, like, I'm done. So I just kept my mouth shut. I tried to get out of Rucker like that much faster, and broke things off. Was like 4 days from graduating, and I'll be damned, I get pulled out again. 15-6 investigation, and he just full sent like all of it. Luckily, like, God had a plan. I got through it. But then what happened was I was able to finally, you know, come clean about stuff. Like, it was finally at a point where they just gave me this like clean slate. They like talking to me and seeing me work really hard and how I like got through those situations in flight school. Like, it proved to them, like, you know, like, this girl isn't like, she's not a shit bag. Like, yeah, she's definitely made some really dumb mistakes. But, you know, like, she's not a shitty person. But it was those secrets that got me kind of into that position. It was the decisions first, and then it was the secrets later. And I could have used that as, you know, well, I never need to talk to, like, I never need to open up to anybody ever again. And that was one route I could take. Or the other route that I could take was, you know, if my shit's all out in the open, who can use it against me at this point?
Wow, that's facts.
So,
Well, and a lot of times it's kind of weird because the military is full with like a bunch of misfits where
mhm,
so many of us have actually messed up. Like, it's weird, like leveling up and like seeing people who didn't stop and take that ownership, that extreme ownership. Jocko talks about this. I love Jocko.
yeah.
And Goggins, like, those guys have gotten me through some of my worst points. But it's every time that I've taken ownership and then made a course correction to do something different where things changed. And like, I can't even imagine like the emotions and everything that you were going through, because like that's deep, because you can't talk to really anybody. You know, it's like all the doors are slammed on you. But I also see that created a lot of internal strength, and
Mhm.
that exudes today. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, you know, it did. It was a really hard time emotionally, and then like throughout my time at Bragg with like some other stuff, like while I was trying to process the stuff that happened in the relationship, like there was things in my family that came out, and you know, when I needed to talk to somebody that was supposed to be from my family, like, you know, like the floor kind of fell out from under me. Granted, they were human; they just didn't know how to handle it. Like, I know that now, but at the time, I just felt alone, and so what that did is that also charged me, like, the way that I feel, like, if I can help somebody not to have to feel like that, then I will open my mouth and throw my shit out there, because realistically, like, we are all human, so we're not really that different. You know, people try to act all squeaky clean, but everybody's got skeletons, everybody's got demons in their closet. And it just takes one person, I've noticed, being willing to, you know, like, sincerely open up and be like, hey, I've been through this. This is what I went through. You know, you may not agree with it, or maybe you've been through it, but, like, you know, I'm open, I'm willing to talk about it. And when you do that, it just opens a whole door of just connection. And then you realize, like, people start talking to you. And then that's
Mm-hmm.
when everything opens up and you realize we aren't that different. A lot of us are
No,
making mistakes and we're just pretending that we aren't. And it's
exactly.
like, why do that anymore?
Yeah,
So,
that's real. Well, and the thing is like, you mentioned something about when we were, you know, kind of prefacing the podcast about both sides of alcohol.
mhm,
When it comes to an aggressor, and when it comes to down to a victim, you know,
mhm,
the hardest part is in America, like, because I've talked to other officers, you know, males that were in positions where like certain things were a part of a culture, and had they known different at the time, they would have made completely different decisions. And I
mhm.
can't speak on those things because obviously, you know, we live in this world where there's like cancel culture and like no grace, and like people don't show anybody any grace because they may have done the same thing in a reverse way, but like people are quick to like attack people.
All
And
right,
the
Tommy, we
problem
can talk
is,
offline. I won't cancel you.
no, you're good. But it's one of those things where like it's it's super refreshing to be able to talk to other people about those issues that are surrounding cultures that were created by the same people that are demonizing you later about your problems and your issues. Like, a lot of the same issues that a lot of higher ups that are facing, you know, whether it's management and all these other things, you know, you bad. Like, a lot of times you're talking to somebody who doesn't know any better. Like, alcohol, like, in even in the Black community has always been a problem. Like on every corner in the Black community, you have a liquor store. People know where they can target and where they can put them. And then you don't have conversations about sex. You don't have conversations about alcohol. You don't have conversations about appropriate dating relationships. So that all clusters together. Now you finally go to a college or a university or whatever, and you're just trying to make it as a human. We're like literally kids. Like you literally just gave somebody like all the way up from $10,000 to $200,000 worth of loans. You would never, like, I was watching a show on money, and like you would never ever give a 20-year-old that much money. Like no bank would ever approve that much money.
Nope.
And then not talk about alcohol, and then not talk about sex, and then not talk about the two intermingled and how that's actually supposed to happen. But then after that, be disingenuous about the process of throwing somebody in behind prison bars because of something that went down the wrong way, instead of having a conflict resolution of, hey, you know what? This whole situation was foul. None of y'all should have been drinking and doing this. But like then it goes on social media and everybody's like, oh yeah, but it's like you're compounding a problem with the problem, because that other person that did get away without any responsibility tied to anything else, right? They go and do it again. And then nobody learns. And then that person that gets slammed goes and creates counterculture where they hate people and they hate other things. Like people that get canceled don't just go away. Like they go and create other cults and cultures, and they take all that information because nobody showed them grace to say, hey, you know what? This was wrong, but this is what's right.
Mm-hmm.
How can we have more conversations about what's right?
Yeah.
And the conversation that I had with that other gentleman, because of culture and how things were, was like, you know what, bro? Like now you have the power to talk to young men about how to act appropriately, how to interact, the things to say, how to go about a situation. And that's more powerful than any prison sentence could ever be, because a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
And you throw data and statistics and you're bad, you're bad. Like I had somebody, the last podcast that I released, they were like, yeah, I'm tired of you guys talking about this black stuff and, black this and white that. And, Robbi, I ain't never been, like the type to race bait. Like I don't do that. Like I'm, but it's like when we're talking from experience, people get offended. You know why? Because they cancel everybody because they speak on it instead of actually having a dialogue about it. I'm like, I don't know what experience they had. You listen to the podcast with me and Mike was talking about his life as a Georgian white boy who got thrown in jail, but we don't get to see that side because we're so busy canceling and poking, pointing fingers. And what's the saying? Like there's one pointed at them and then there's what, three pointed back at you. I'm like, nobody's squeaky clean, so we might as well have a dialogue. Don't ridicule me, teach me, because I'm willing to learn all day, and I think the human condition is built for learning.
Yeah, no, and I think honestly, and man, even in the last 7 months, so I've been sober for a little bit over 7 months now. I'll be 8 come June.
So proud of you.
Thanks, man. But it's super cool. Like, it's gonna sound weird, and I thought people were absolutely nuts and bonkers when they would come in and talk and they would say the same stuff. But honestly, like, I am super grateful for my experience, and like in the recovery journey that I picked, it is awesome because the way that you go through it, like the steps that you take to go through this recovery process, you have to address the stuff that you're upset about. You have to address all that crap that you're holding. But then the part of it that not many other people get to do is then you have to go back to every single one of those situations and you have to own your part in it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're taking fault for a specific action, but you're definitely taking ownership and responsibility of your part. And then I think that's like it's probably one of the coolest things that I could do, because then you really do learn about yourself, and you get to a point sometimes where like you might start feeling like rather self-righteous, and it's a really humbling experience. And like, like I said, like you and I were talking about it, and I was like, we're willing to reach people before they get to the point where they may make mistakes because of like alcohol influenced decisions. Because you realize, like, once you go through the program, and like the severity of like decisions differ, but it doesn't matter. At the core of it, like all of the typical character things were there. But at the core of it, we have all been like the victim, and we have all been the perpetrator at some point. So there are some people that want to play like the poor me card. Yeah, like poor you, but like you've also like poor somebody else. So
and a lot of times we become the idealized being that this victimizing, and it becomes like the golden calf, like they talk about in the Bible. It becomes idolized, and everybody runs to this. But the problem is like, if you accept that type of level of deity, it gets to you. You know what I mean? Like it just picks everything apart, and now you got a bigger mess that you had to put lies and lies on top of. That like, knowing that is super powerful, because now you can have a completely different dialogue. Because when you're not coming across, shout out to people that need help with things, right? But after I've stopped trying to make myself the victim in a situation, now I'm like, these are the actions that I can take. This is what I don't do when I go out. Like it's kind of weird. I'm not at a level where like I don't drink anymore, but I'm at a level where like I've literally got like 5, 6 bottles, 7 bottles here of like alcohol that I have just not finished. Like it's just stuff that's just sitting there. Like I don't even have like a will to really drink it, because I read like through like my books and different things that I read. There are a lot of powerful tenets of successful people, and one of them was like 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, the rapper. I don't know if you some people there, but he talks about, I know, I can't look, I hate to assume, right?
See, there we go. You're just assuming because I'm white. I don't know, but there we go.
Maybe that's like, I know black people who don't know who 50 Cent is.
Who doesn't know who 50 Cent? I mean, come on. Even mainstream radio everywhere.
Robbi, show me some grace, okay? I'm trying to be kind of PC here. But he talked about how like he will go like to parties and functions, and so he'll have a little bit of the champagne that's there, but then he has a bottle person go and fill it with water.
Oh, that's super cool. I didn't know that.
And then like a lot of times, like, so one time Snoop Dogg tried to get him to smoke because it's Snoop, but instead of inhaling, he kind of did and then spit it out. But like a lot of these things are like what moguls are made of, because they're thinking completely differently than everybody else. And there are a lot of situations that I've seen by taking a different approach to alcohol, or like completely avoiding it in general. Like when it comes to like military function, any of that stuff, like I'm not going out afterwards. I ain't going nowhere. You ain't about to say Captain Hamilton nothing. You ain't about to say nothing. I'm going to bed. That's where I'm going. Because I got to get up in the morning and do PT. But it saved me from a lot of situations that have gone foul in other people's, realms. Like I don't knock nobody that does it, but like when you start to understand and study what success looks like, you're like, this is not really a part of where I want my vision to go. And I think it's powerful that you're talking about sobriety and all those things the way you are, because eventually I might be launching a nonprofit, and I'd love for you to be on the board for that if you're ever down for that. So we'll talk those details later. But you were gonna say something.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, so like you're talking about like how to approach people when they mess up, and like look at yourself with like ownership and stuff too. And so you talked about earlier about how you're raised by a minister, and you always just kind of wanted to run from that. And I was a little bit different, but I think even since I was a kid, I always had a little bit of a different perspective on it. And then it's just developed as I've grown. And then going through this like sobriety, and recovery journey, it's kind of like reestablished, like what my belief in God and like what I actually believe it's about. And, you bring up, like, I'm not going to get super like preachy or anything.
No, you're good.
Don't
Do your
freak out.
thing. This is about Robbi Jenkins. So,
but no, for me, like, I think a lot of the problems with religion now is because it is a very, shame on you kind of deal. To where realistically, like, it's supposed to be, you share your experience and remember that you're human, they're human, they're gonna make mistakes, and so are you. Those mistakes might not be the same thing, but they're still mistakes. People are people. They've got different battles and they've got different struggles. So when I think of like religion, or how a church should function, it shouldn't be like a shame on you. Like, I'm not saying it should be like a passive like free for all, like, oh, it's okay, but it shouldn't be so much focused on preaching like very like little specific, like, this is bad, but more of just how to be like a good person and be able to just go talk to people and show them, like, what is love, and like what is patience and tolerance and caring about. you know you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to like it, but you also don't have to attack the person. So
that's true. That's true. A lot of people are missing love for other people. Like, a lot of times when I want to get snippy with a customer at work, I'm like, hey, Grace, like, don't. And a lot of times I just do. Okay, ma'am. Well, I'm still going to put this package here and you can walk, because I'm not going into your house or your garage, because I know that this is the 21st century. So, you still got to watch yourself, but it's cool navigating that. So as we get ready to wrap up, do you have any questions for me about the podcast or anything, or any tidbits for the listeners or anything?
no, not really that I can think of the top of my head. Just, I don't know. I guess just remember that you're human and people are humans, and just because they say something or do something, like, it is only going to affect you as much as you let it. And then you just kind of have to remember that people are at different levels of their journey. And so, like I said, it comes down to like being patient, and not attacking, but having, like you said, having that dialogue. So,
Well, Robbi, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. And I wish you the best in your journey. Hope our paths paths cross in the near future with branding and some of the positive things that you have, and the healthier relationship with substances and food, and like it's extremely inspirational stuff that you have on Instagram. And so everyone, go and purchase a t-shirt, purchase Uncave or Conquer. This type of positivity is what we need in the world, and you rocking that shirt might just change somebody's world. So, ladies and gentlemen, Robbi Jenkins. Robbi, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thank you.